Hello everyone, I just wanted to do a quick screencast for our survey and interview data that we collected during our discovery phase for our design thinking project. Our design thinking question is how can we begin to cultivate an environment of mutual understanding that ensures all students and staff are contributing members of a culturally diverse environment? We thought this question could encompass both students and staff, and really it could ensure that they're contributing members in the way that they are accepting and knowledgeable of other cultures, religions, and potentially diverse groups, and able to just foster that environment by being a part of it. What do the end users think and feel? So survey that I did was 10 questions. I posted it on the social media site for my specific school site, Health Sciences High and Middle College, and I got about a dozen responses, just being summertime. Not too many students, but I did get a fair share of student responses. So survey results, 100% believe, based on the statement, quote, strongly believe or strongly agree, unquote. It is important to understand and be accepting of other culturally diverse groups, which I thought was awesome. I mean, right off the bat, the first question, just looking at the graph on SurveyMonkey, you could see that 100% of the people that participated were at least able to understand that acknowledging and accepting other groups is very important. 80% agreed or strongly agreed that media does have an influence on their opinion of culturally diverse groups. I thought that this was really important, especially as young people, at least that they're aware that media can potentially influence their thoughts, their decisions, things like that. 90% agree or strongly agree they can openly discuss culturally diversity with their peers. I thought this was important, that they're able to at least acknowledge different culturally diverse groups, or at least questions that might conflict with their own beliefs, their own family values, and things like that. Continuing the survey results, 90% agreed or strongly agreed that staff and teachers are accepting of culturally diverse groups. I thought this was great. I mean, obviously, it would be awesome to have 100% of students acknowledging that staff members are accepting of culturally diverse groups. But 90%, I think it's great. So a majority of students are feeling that the teachers are accepting and fostering of that environment so far. 80% agree or strongly agree they are accepted as part of a culturally diverse community. This is, I think, a huge step, at least for this small population, this small kind of group at HSHMC. But the fact that over 75% feel that they are accepted as part of this group and small community, I think is huge. I think we still have a long way to go, because I think the next phase is how do we target that 20% that we're missing, so that they can at least feel that they're accepted within that group. Some concerning trends. I did a little screen capture here. The first question says, I am accepting of other religions. And it's interesting because I broke the culturally diverse groups into 4 different categories. Those categories included sexual preference and identity. They included ethnicity and culture. They included students with disabilities, and the 4th one was religion. And interestingly enough, for students with disabilities, culture and ethnicity, and sexual identity and preference, a large majority fell in that strongly agree, and very few fell in the agree. And then if I looked at this graph, it was really obvious that certain students that participated in the survey that did strongly agree with the other statements, for some reason when it came to religion, they kind of downgraded to this agree area, and you can see even someone identified as strongly disagree. So I would say that identifying other religions, educating students on how they can be accepting of other religions and at least knowledgeable, could be an important target area. The other area is there are adequate trainings to educate students on culturally diverse topics. You can see right here just this huge graph for disagree. I think it's pretty obvious that a really nice area that we could potentially target is how do we have a student run or student driven or some type of campaign so that students are getting better education, better training on culturally diverse topics, and at least feeling like they can address these topics, discuss these topics, even potentially debate some of these topics in a fostering type of environment. So next is analyzing trends of the culturally diverse groups. So based on that last screen capture I showed you the graph, so 70% strongly agreed and 30% agreed they're accepting of other cultures and ethnicities. 60% strongly agreed, 40% agreed they're accepting of individuals with disabilities. 90% strongly agreed and 10% agreed they're accepting of other sexual identities and preferences. And right here you can see it's highlighted. 50% strongly agree, 40% agree, and that's 10% strongly disagree that they're accepting of other religions. So analyzing trends continued. The survey statement, there are adequate trainings to educate students on culturally diverse topics. 20% agreed, 10%, or 20% strongly agreed, 10% agreed, 60% disagreed, 10 strongly disagreed. So there's an overwhelming majority of 70% that think that we need to increase and improve our training for students. So summaries of the interviews. Unfortunately, sorry, I'm scrolling down a little bit. Unfortunately, I was not able to interview my fourth student, which was a student of a different race. But the three students that I was able to interview was a 10th grade student with a disability, a 12th grade student, gay male student, and a 12th grade Muslim student. So the 10th grade student with disability, based on some of the interview questions, he has experienced discrimination. He's experienced it in his current school. He's experienced it, he exclaimed, much more in his past school and at home. He feels labeled, like there's a label on him, and that many people prejudge him based on this label. He especially said during group projects, students do not want to be brought down to the same level as a student with an IEP or disability, just kind of showing that there is some discrimination happening within the classrooms. He feels less discriminated against in an inclusive environment, and states that he feels more a part of the overall community. He doesn't feel targeted or labeled as much because he's really just a person within the general community who receives supports. He does state that friends will stand up for him and for one another, asking each other to really try to identify what the other person's going through and experiencing. 12th grade gay male student, he has experienced discrimination. He did state that it was majority at his, quote, mostly white, unquote, middle school. He said that there was a lot of bullying, there was name calling, there was physical violence. He really stressed that it made his school environment and his educational experience very negative. And to this day, as a 12th grader, he's still starting to come back to the school environment and not have as many absences because he's starting to gain a little more confidence in the community around him. He currently does not feel discriminated against at his current site at HSHMC. He does believe that an inclusive setting, especially built of diverse groups, because they will not tolerate these extreme behaviors. He also acknowledged that good policies are in place. One thing that HSHMC does in the beginning of the year is a family group. This is where all grade levels from 9th through 12th are intermingled for the first 4 days. There's no academics that happens. It's all about policies and team building. And he said that especially freshmen will benefit from that because it really opens up this fostering and caring and inclusive environment that can make anyone feel very much accepted. He also stated that outside presenters coming in and sharing their stories about overcoming diversity and what they've experienced, not just with him but school-wide, allows him to feel closer to the whole school just because it kind of brings everyone together. For the 12th grade Muslim student, it was very interesting to me. We spoke about this term empathy from the beginning, really understanding what other students go through, and I have to say that this is the one that struck me most. He has experienced discrimination. He did say that peers often can make terrorist jokes. He says he does not take them personal, but I I mean, I can't imagine because I am not a young male Muslim student, so I'm not targeted the way that he is. But he did explain to me somewhat what that's like, and it's hard for me to want to go in and understand what that's like. He also said that the media portrayal of Muslims definitely influences people's prejudgments, things like that, whether they know it or not. He says, especially when he's wearing his more of his cultural dress and attire, wearing his thobe or his hamis, that he feels very much more profiled as a young male and falling under that, terrorist jumping into people's minds very quickly. Um, Students will not proactively stand up against comments, he stated. That could be within his peer group. I feel like that's an area that we could potentially target. Just making people more aware, more knowledgeable that these comments are just unacceptable. He even stated that his parents have prepared him to be discriminated against based on his religion and culture. He said that his dad has shared some stories with him and just said, hey, being that you're Somali, being that you are Muslim, there are going to be things said and thought about you, and you need to be prepared for that. And just coming from, a place of empathy, especially as a parent, I can't imagine having to prepare my child to be discriminated against just based on where they were born, or the religion or the dress that they choose to wear and the religion they choose to practice. So that's a little bit kind of overwhelming and frustrating. So all students believed that students could benefit from a culturally diverse trainings. They said that they would attend these trainings. Some students even recommended a student-led awareness group or campaigns, making a recommendation that maybe each month a different student-led body takes on a month of awareness. That could be the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance. They take a month and they do things for students where they just empower them a little bit with some knowledge, some things that can help them become proactive supporters, where the Muslim student group could be proactive in a campaign, where the Catholic student group could be proactive and have a campaign. The African American group could have a proactive and campaign. So that was really interesting hearing that from a student, and I think it's a great idea. All the students said they benefited from outside speakers and hearing stories that applied to real life. So again, areas identified of concern: religious understanding, training and acceptance, and culturally diverse trainings for all students. So I think this gives us a good start. I think we need to gather a lot more information. I think we need to continue to interpret this information and continue to ask more questions.
Hello everyone, I am Jesus Ochoa and I will be talking about my survey results from teachers. Now, the main first question was how understanding are teachers of diversity? Most teachers surveyed were actually very understanding of students with different sexual preferences as well as persons with disabilities. Now, the one area of understanding that wasn't as high was for those with different religions or different views on religion. The acceptance of different groups was actually very high, in the very accepting range, with religion receiving slightly less acceptance in the other categories. Acceptance on an individual level was high, but the acceptance on the community level varied between very accepting and somewhat accepting. Teachers responded that they had received some form of training for cultural understanding and diversity. Trainings range from workshops to coursework and even school site trainings. Teacher backgrounds had a mostly positive effect on their cultural understanding as well.
This video is to share my story, my piece in our design thinking project, hearing from the experts. My task for this phase was to get information from experts. Thanks to YouTube, there's lots of resources available on video, so I started by creating a playlist. The videos I watched and listened to helped me to hear the viewpoints of teenagers talking about diversity, college professors. There was a young group of Muslim students being interviewed, and news outlets like CNN provided more information. Then, with the information I gathered from those experts, I tried to identify some common themes, and I started grouping the information into categories. So these are the categories I came up with in no particular order. Category 1, diversity, is a key to understanding people. Interactions with diversity allow us to see different traditions and lifestyles, experience other ways of life, better appreciate all people, and gain multicultural awareness. Category number 2, recommended behaviors. Stop and think before speaking. Listen to different points of view. Give everyone a forum to speak. Accept diversity as a positive thing. Discover and break down barriers, and interact with all people in your community. Category number 3, benefits of diversity, which include seeing a little bit of everybody, coming together to form a community, coming together and working together, working with people of different backgrounds as a team, different points of view mixed together, learning from each other, empathy and understanding. Our own individual ideas make us stand out from the crowd and be unique, accessible, and inclusive school community. And when people are embraced, accepted, and invited. Category number 4, sexual orientation. Students talked about bullying as being a concern. The bullying affects their learning. They don't want to come to school. They don't pay attention. Students were worried about talking about instances of bullying or reporting bullying because of how other students would react. And they made note that technology makes it easier to harass. Here are some statistics. Out of 7,000 LGBT middle and high school students surveyed, 90% were bullied based on sexual orientation or gender identity. 66% of LGBT students surveyed felt unsafe at school. 86% of gay and lesbian teens in one study said they did not have one adult supporter they could identify in their school. They were uncomfortable with any kind of disclosure in the school environment. And the dropout rate for LGBTQ students is 3 times the national average. Category number 5, teaching strategies, or the impact on schools. Some teaching strategies were recommended, ideally to have this impact of diversity on schools. Suggestions were to teach respect, collaboration, tolerance, understanding, equity, awareness, to think outside the box, find different pathways to success, to consider cultures and language skills when developing learning objectives and activities, to build rapport with students, understand their lives, to build relevance into lessons and make them more meaningful, model respect and cross-cultural understanding, examine your own biases, and highlighted that the importance of training for school staff on LGBT issues. It was also noted that it's important for teachers to promote diversity and for students to learn about diversity so they can be accepting of all, and a multitude of cultures should be taught through books, movies, lessons, so children will be exposed to that. Category number 6, taking action. Be a friend to a person with special needs. Accept diversity as a positive thing. Step out of your comfort zone and make a difference. Treat everyone with kindness, compassion, friendship, love, patience, understanding, inspiration, acceptance. Create or join a gay-straight alliance as a place teens can be supportive of other teens and to provide a place where teens can talk to each other. Category number 7, religious diversity. I watched several videos of young Muslim students. They spoke about the general misunderstanding about Muslim background and practices, that people forget about the American part. The Muslims in the United States are usually American citizens. They also felt Muslims are judged for what they wear and bullied because people are not used to people who are different. These students wanted people to know that the Muslim philosophy is to seek knowledge from cradle to grave, and that Islam means peace. Category number 8, in the area of disabilities. A young child described disabilities as somebody can't do what somebody else can do. And the importance of wanting people to understand that people with disabilities are people too. And category 9, key ideas about inclusion. how building an inclusive school community requires people who care and are passionate about making a difference. It's important to understand and embrace diversity. Differences are valuable and need to be celebrated. Love has no labels, no disability, no gender, no race, no religion. The idea that our family is no less than any other family. And to ensure inclusion, all students need accessibility, making things available to everyone. Schools must create opportunities for everyone to participate fully. Looking at these categories, I then pulled out some unexpected learnings, or what I felt were big ideas. There's something different about each of us, and that makes us important. Kids are forming impressions about race at very young ages. Teaching diversity will enrich educational opportunities for all. Educators should celebrate diversity in every way possible. People assume what others and the media say is true. They don't take the time to understand. And explicit racism has diminished in the last 50 years, but there are still implicit forms of racism and prejudice. So if you're interested, the videos in my playlist are listed here, and I have a link to my YouTube playlist. If you have any questions, please ask. Thanks.